I'd like to talk about my most painful and traumatic childbirth experience. I vividly remember this day. I was, I think, age 26. Yeah, age 26. And I remember the days leading up to this. I had really bad hip pain and back pain. I could, like, barely walk. I was in so much pain. I remember one day I was talking on the phone. I was talking to these two girls at the time. One girl's name was Megan. The other girl name was Chanel. I was talking to this girl named Chanel on the phone. I remember lying down and talking to her, and then all of a sudden I suddenly felt this extreme stomach pain, like bad, like that's usually how the labors would start. So I guess a labor started real quick, and I couldn't even talk. All I could get out was a few words, and I just was like in serious severe pain. Next thing I know, some water gushed out. The whole bed was wet. So I guess my water broke. Then the next thing I know, this guy ended up in the room. He looked like one of the nurses that I had seen on the ship before, who had cleaned up my throat when I got sick. And he was one of the nurses that was always there helping out on the ship. So he ended up transporting me using that rectangular device, which brings out that light and transports you, abducts you. So I ended up on the ship. Yeah, I do vividly remember this nurse. He was short. He had like a large frame, and he had different features. And he was the one who made the comment about my feet. And yeah, he was there, and I guess he was going to be my nurse for today. And then that Dr. Greep, was also there. And I remember the reptile guy was there as well. I remember feeling extreme pain. I felt like I was gonna die. It was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, and I wasn't getting any epidural. I wasn't getting anything for pain or anything like that. I guess today the reptilian guy wanted to torture me really bad and let me feel pain. I was just in so much pain. I remember just going limp. And when I had went limp and didn't want to, they wanted me to push, and I didn't want to push anymore. So I went limp, and then the reptile guy ended up giving me a shot in my back for pain. And I remember the pain eased up a little while, just a teeny bit, but it was just so extreme that it just didn't help. It didn't help at all. I just remember just being left alone for hours, and I was in so much pain. So I guess that I had a really long labor or something, and I was just left alone for hours, like just in a room by myself. I remember crying and just being alone, and I just was like, oh my God, it just was terrible. So I remember something happening where the nurse ended up coming in, and the reptile guy was there, and they were planning to give me an epidural, and the nurse did it incorrectly. I remember I was just screaming in so much pain. Yeah, he did it incorrectly in my back, put it in my back incorrectly or something like that, and I remember it didn't work, and I remember crying, and I begged for like an epidural or anesthesia, something, like put me to sleep. This is just terrible. I can't do it. This is just the worst pain ever. And he kept on mentioning like he couldn't give me an epidural or anesthesia, that he couldn't do it, that it could be dangerous. And I think he was saying like if he tried to do it, he could do too much or something like that. I remember I begged. I was just in so much pain, like I begged him, and I remember he was on the side of my bed, and I just begged him and begged him and begged him. And I remember the reptile guy was around my bed, and there was this other woman. She had like reddish hair, and so I kept asking that nurse guy, yeah, please do something about this pain. So I remember he, I guess, was going to give me anesthesia or something. So he looked at me, he gave me this gaze, and then next thing I know, everything went black, and I felt everything dropping. Like, I guess, I don't know if I died. That's what it seemed it was. I remember my eyes closing, everything going black, but at the same time I could see all the nurses, all the medical staff run towards me, and I could see the reptile guy like grab my like body, like my chest, and like trying to like shake me and wake me up or something. But I remember feeling, yeah, everything went black, and then my body dropped, and I was in this apartment all of a sudden, which was strange. This apartment was nice. I remember like, oh wow, I have my own place. Next thing I know, in this apartment, two men busted in through the door, and they were trying to rape me. And I remember I screamed, and then this guy came to help me. This guy was also like me. He was Black American, and he was like kind of my height. Can't remember exactly his other features, but I remember we walked outside on the street and there were all kinds of people fighting. There was chaos going on. We walked down the street and then we began to notice that there were like feces all over the street. Like shit was everywhere. And I remember we grabbed each other and like cringed. We were like, oh my God, we were just disgusted. Like it was so scary. I guess this was like some kind of apocalypse type of state the world was in or something like that. I don't know, or like the end time something, but it was crazy. I remember next thing I know, I ended up in this room. All of a sudden after that, somehow magically, I ended up in this room with a box and it had like a record on the ground or some kind of typewriter, I think it was, or it may have been some kind of other electronic type of device. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. It was like, I remember it being like a brown colored office with like wood walls. And I remember I was sitting on the floor and playing with the typewriter. And usually during these abductions, I would always be naked. Like they would always have you just be naked. And I remember being uncomfortable because I didn't want to be naked, because somehow, like, yeah, sometimes you just like randomly end up naked and it's just strange. And so I remember speaking, there were these Japanese men there. I remember speaking in Japanese to them. I used to know how to speak Japanese, and I guess that I could like really speak it when I'm like on the ship and during these missions that I was put on or whichever. Like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I remember I begged them for clothes, and they were so nice, and they said that they wished that they could give me a kimono to wear. And they were very friendly. And then I remember we ended up in this room. It was a wood room with like sliding doors and like a dojo. I remember something began to happen where somebody was trying to come after me and rape me again. And I remember I began to scream. And then I noticed something quickly pick me up. It was like a hand come down or something. It was so strange. It picked me up, and then next thing I know, boom, I was like back in the hospital bed. I was gasping, and it was so weird. But I did know it was a really scary experience, like with the whole street thing, with like the shit on the street and all that stuff. Was so weird. And I remember the reptile guy was like holding on to me, and I didn't know what happened, what they did to like bring me back. I guess I must have like died. And I was like, wow, that this is crazy. So I woke up, and I remember just being like, wow, this is so weird. Everyone was around me at this point when I woke up. And so I remember, next thing you know, I remember having it was a labor. The labor happened, and I guess during this labor I died from the pain, and that was what that was. And he had woken me up, and I guess that I didn't know what happened, but the baby had already been out maybe or something, but they said the baby had birth defects and issues, and I guess it was from me drinking at the time, because I was dealing with all this gang stalking. I was dealing with people trying to kill me, so I was drinking shortly for a short moment. I was drinking alcohol, which was not good, but I guess it caused maybe some birth defects. And I know that this woman who was there, who was next to the reptile guy, she had red hair, and I know she was very, very upset that the baby died. Like, she was sad. Like, I guess that she had planned to take my baby, because the guy was explaining to me, the reptile guy was explaining to me that she couldn't have kids. So she, I guess, wanted to take my baby. And that's what it was about, was taking my baby. So, I remember, like, also there being a pool of blood around me after this childbirth. There was just blood all around the place. It was so bad. It was all over the hospital bed. I remember there being a pool of blood around me. And then I remember being sent home, going back home. And I remember I was bleeding for a whole month every day. I remember I had like severe anemia, and then doctors would not treat me for it. They would not tell me I had it. They just kept saying nothing's wrong, even though I know I'm losing all this blood and I have anemia. I'm having chest pain, fatigue, all the symptoms, and they're saying, oh, no, nothing's wrong at all. And that was part of them hiding my blood test from me, which I will speak about later on. There was a doctor visit I had on the ship, and they actually had let me know that they were hiding all of my blood tests and things like that and stuff like that, and what was going on. So I remember I was abducted again. I was brought back onto the ship, and I remember I was there to go speak to this. I was supposed to be brought to speak to this guy. I remember being on the ship, and I was brought through these doors. Usually the tall gray aliens would guard each door on the ship. The whole ship was usually, it had a white color with a little bit of black mix, and each of these doors were guarded by, yes, the tall grays, and the tall grays were tall. They kind of have what looked like a Darth Vader outfit, except being white, like that same kind of headdress and stuff, but it's all white. So they would open the doors. So they opened the doors. I got brought to the front area of the ship to speak to the same looking reptile guy with brownish scales. I remember he wanted to talk to me, and I was called to this area. This area of the spaceship, it must have been like the main captain's area, because I remember going there. There were different screens. There's all these different kinds of screens and things and stuff around. I remember seeing like space and the stars out the window, and I remember he told me to turn around the other way. He was sitting in like the main driver's seat and told me to turn around the other way. He told me like to turn around. I guess he didn't want me to look at him because he looked, you know, he was an alien. He looked different, so he didn't want me to look. So I remember he started to talk to me and ask me questions. He started to ask why I had sex, why I didn't save my virginity, and why I didn't wait for him. I was so confused. I was like, what the hell? It's so weird. I then remember he began to mention John, and he asked me if I felt loved when I was with John and around John. And to describe John, by the way, John is tall. He's like he was a tall guy. He was white. He had blue eyes and like salt pepper hair. He was older, and he was asking me like all these questions about John, and I'm like, I told him, yeah, I mean, I did. I was young at the time, and I was stupid, so I don't know, I got feelings and whatever, or something like that. I don't know. It's just a whole complicated situation, and so I told him, yeah, but John never even took me on a real date, so I didn't feel loved or anything like that. I didn't feel loved. Like, I really didn't. I told him the truth, and he's like, oh, well, that's not, true. Like, John really loved you and this and that. And he began to tell me that, like, John would never come back, that John committed suicide because I saw a different guy, like, or something like that. But it didn't make sense because John was already with somebody. It seemed like to me, like we were just firm of benefits. Like it wasn't even anything serious. He never took me on a real date. So I guess maybe it hurt him that I had another firm of benefits at the time. And so basically he was saying John committed suicide and he was never coming back. And that's why he ghosted me and disappeared, and why I was, wondering what was going on. And he said he was like really, basically he was explaining he was angry about the other things that I did in my life, like drinking alcohol and how I like lost my virginity. And I explained to him that I was really hurt. People were always calling me ugly, fat, and like I was called all these names, and I didn't feel good about myself and all this stuff. And then he mentioned like he did all of those evil things that were done to me. He told me that like he took the spirit of my mother, he took the spirit of these people that hurt me, and he was entering their spirit and working to be them to hurt me. So he was responsible for all of that. He mentioned he was this girl named Daria. Her name was Daria Nagabina, this girl that I was friends with in school. And she was from Russia. She was adopted, and we were friends and stuff. And like he mentioned that he was her, and mentioned that he, came down to earth as her or something, and like he had to kill himself. Well, it's like all this crazy stuff. And then he said like basically he said that each time that like I stopped being friends with him as these people he came down to earth, that he had to kill himself. And basically like all these forms he was shape-shifting in, that everybody like he came in my life and he had to kill himself like if I didn't want to deal with him anymore. So he was definitely shape-shifting using this little shape-shifting tools or whatever. And so that was part of that, and that was where it got really crazy. He then went on to mention that the whole country was running out of money soon, and that they were going to put everyone into cages, like FEMA camps, do an EMP, and things would get crazy. He also said that if I had save my money, I could have gone and saw John in Australia. So I was like, okay, but first he said John wasn't coming back. So it's just like all this weird stuff. So he was like contradicting himself even more. So he said that I could have had gone a plane ticket and got to Australia and saw him, and I was really confused. Okay, and then I remember he started to talk more about religion somehow, and he told me that, like, we wrote the Bible together, like, when I was in past life. I remember I was so confused. I was like, what? He told for me to not believe in God, that it was paganism, and, like, Jesus was paganism, and that he told me that I could go to hell for, like, reading astrology, listening to astrology. He then said I was really a Virgo and not a Libra, and that I used to be a Leo, and that I'm now a Virgo, and that the calendars are all wrong or something like that. Then he began to say that I was really a Muslim and I was Mesopotamian. But it's crazy because before that he had said I was Celtic in a past life. And so I was so confused. I'm like, what? So I had no idea what he's talking about. Then things started to get really crazy. Then he started to say how demonic it was that I was against homosexuality. And he said that he did not like that I would not accept being with a woman. And he said that, like, he was trying to come down to earth as a woman, and that he said that John was really a woman, and that for me to have John back, that I would have to have, like, be with a woman and be a lesbian. And I just thought, like, what the fuck? Like, this is so crazy. It didn't even make any sense. Then he was trying to now say that I was really a man, and that I was, like, basically trying to say that that's what I was in my past life, or something like that. Something that changed. Just not making any sense at all. Just trying to deceive me. Just devilish deceivers type of lying stuff, which was not true. I remember that, after the labor, I was back on the spaceship now. I remember I was in a different area. I remember I was being attacked now all of a sudden by these, like, half alien, half human beings. I remember seeing one of these girls working somewhere, and their eye, like, what they'll have is they'll have these aliens, they'll have one eye going to the side, like crooked eyes, or like both eyes, people's going to the side, because they're hybrids or whatever they are. They're not, like, there's some kind of defect with them. And I also remember seeing this one doctor that I had at UCLA. Her name was Dr. Gillespie. And I was like, wow, that is so crazy. So Dr. Gillespie, all of a sudden, like, she was forming back and forth from, like, man to woman. It was weird. And then I remember I was told to say the word wahoo. I said wahoo, and then her face changed to a reptile. And I was like, wow. But they were using some kind of, like, radiation guns on me. Like, the pain was so severe, I couldn't even believe what was going on. I was like, oh my God, I was being knocked to the ground. And yeah, I was being told by somebody, I think it was that black guy that was giving me advice and tips. And he was telling me, okay, say wahoo, wahoo to them. And I remember, yeah, their faces were morphing and, like, changing over and over. I was like, wow. So I was on the ship going around and saying this to these people trying to attack me. I then next remember, after being attacked, I remember I was entered into the other part of the ship, and this was the main boss on the ship, I guess, and he was very large and tall. This is the dragon that I spoke about with my scar. He had red scales and a red-orange color. He was huge, like maybe over 10 feet or something like that. But I remember being hurt by him. Like, he first, I guess, was mad at me or something, and I remember trying to hit him or something on his arm or something like that, because I wanted to keep myself safe from being hurt. The next thing I know, he said, how dare I hit him? He is God. He took his hand out and shot this blast of, like, radiation. I remember being knocked to the ground and being knocked unconscious. And I remember, next thing I could feel myself being carried. I kind of still was maybe a little bit awake a little, and I could remember I was being brought back into this room with this wooden bridge, and it had, like, lava underneath. It had, like, a red glow, and he was carrying me. And I remember he did the same thing when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I was like, wow. So I then remember I was carried, and I woke up in this room, and I was on a silver exam table. It was one of those hospital, like, lab rooms or whatever. This silver exam table was just freezing. It was just a rectangle. There was no pillows, nothing. It was so cold. I remember I was shaking, and I was breathing so hard because of whatever radiation I was hit with caused me to, like, breathe in and out, and I was, like, in so much pain. I was weak. I could not move. And the next thing I know, the door busts open, and it's John, and I just thought, this is crazy. How is he here? This doesn't even make any sense. Next thing I know, he walks over to me, and I didn't have any clothes on, because that's how they, take all your clothes off. So he ended up pulling his pants down and beginning to rape me. And I also was dealing with bleeding at the same time because I still had blood coming out from just having that terrible childbirth. And I told him, no, like, don't do this. And he just kept doing it. He kept raping me, and like, I couldn't stop it. I was too weak, and there was just no way that I could fight him away. And pretty much, I just went limp. There was nothing I could do. And then I remember, like, I told him, like, please don't do this because I can't handle another childbirth. I can't do this. And he just kept going. And then, like, he ejaculated, and then he goes, oh, there, like, pretty much like, oh, there, like, now you're gonna be pregnant, basically. And I remember feeling terrible, and I felt like I was just used as a breeding machine, like, and I just couldn't even believe it. And I remember, yeah, I was sent home after that. I remember waking up with, like, bruises all over my body, and my chest was red from, like, the radiation or whatever blast he hit me with. I had a big red area where my chest was, and so it was red for a very, very long time. And yeah, that was that experience. And yeah, it was very, very traumatizing, and it's hard. So I now have much complications from this. I believe I have endometriosis, which I now have to be getting a Depo-Provera shot to stop bleeding, because I now have uncontrolled bleeding that will not stop. And I haven't been able to see a real doctor because they are manipulating all of my medical care. They're not allowing me to see any real doctor. I'm only being seen doctors that are involved and affiliated with this secret shadow government program. So I cannot see a real legitimate doctor. I now have severe nerve ending pains for the nerve endings of my vagina. So having sex is very, very painful and very, very difficult for me. And I cannot get a pap smear exam. It's too painful. I deal with a lot of cramping pain. I have bladder issues now from all of these childbirths. I have many, many physical issues, and it's devastating. But yeah, so I wanted to go ahead and just share this story. It's a little bit long, but you know, hey, got the story out there. I'm gonna go ahead and bring more of my stories, and sorry, they're gonna keep getting crazier, as I mentioned. So yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and email me. My email's in the description box. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.